Check 1, 2. Mic check. How are we sounding? How's the audio? Okay? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, but first, coffee. How's everyone doing? Got some memes for you to start. So while we wait for people to filter in, just check out the chat and say hello. Good morning to Linda. Good morning, Bianca. Anybody else who's watching, drop a wave in the chat. Say hello. Let us know you're here. Awesome. Good, good. Okay. So, just seeing how everybody's doing. How you all holding up with that there quarantine? Hope everyone's still doing all right and staying sane. Audio good.
Oh, Chris made it.
Yeah,
Oh.
Wicked. Awesome. Morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, Steph. My man. Good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing all right.
Aw, thanks, Linda.
Nice, nice. Hope you're doing well, Steph. I was talking to Jerry. Give me a shout, a call later on. We'll chat. So this class this morning, before we get started, we'll have some fun. 15-year quarantine. That's hilarious. Steph's got experience. Steph's got experience. Right on. Yeah, so we got some funny memes. What was the next one? Oh, yeah. So, little story. I was at picking up the flea medicine for Patootie, for Krista's cat. And I was walking towards the door. The lady was like at the door peeking her head out, but I was like walking towards it to say hello and like to talk to her. And I guess I needed some lessons on my social distancing, because she put her hand out and was like, just step back, as if I was like radioactive or something. I don't know. But so I found this funny meme that will help me to learn proper social distancing. So as you can see, we got these the two teeth here, a little too close, but the next little gap there, that's proper social distancing. Just in case you guys need a refresher, a good PSA for this morning.
What's the next one?
The next one is, if you need, if you're running low on toilet paper, and you need to make sure that you can get some before they fly off the shelves, before the shelves are bare and empty. We got a little tip from Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda says to use your fake ID, your fake senior citizen's ID, so you can go shopping in the early hours.
And I think the last one.
Oh yeah, and the last class we were covering crow pose, and I got some feedback about my penguin comment. About how, maybe your crow looks more like a penguin, it's not flying. Well, I found a meme of even penguins can fly. So as you can see, once it pops up, the penguins can fly too. They just need to learn a different way. That's all. There you go. So the penguin goes to pilot school, and he learns how to fly just like the rest of the birds. So It's all good. So for this class, we're doing things a little bit differently. We're going to be using props in the class this morning. So for your props, you will need maybe like a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball or, I don't know, a dog toy.
You can also use like a rolled up sock.
Yeah, you can use a rolled up sock. If you have like a dog chew toy or something, you can use that to squeeze on. Excuse me. But essentially, the intention of the prop is to be able to squeeze on it to create irradiation or to create tension or engagement of the muscles surrounding the joint that you're trying to move. And so when we can create greater engagement surrounding the joint, when we start to take that part of our body through its full spectrum of range of motion, through all three movement planes, you'll find that maybe the joint in particular will feel a lot more stable as it moves through those outermost limits of its range of motion. In our cars, so cars, we've been doing them a little bit in previous classes. They're essentially our quote-unquote joint circles, but as you know, we do them more mindfully with intention, very slow, and the intention is to sort of challenge the joint a little bit, like within your capacities. So sort of within the widest pain-free range of motion that you can. So if you're doing a shoulder car and at a certain point you get a pinch or pain, you want to sort of circumvent that area. You cut the circle off there and continue through it. So when we do these cars, this class, we're going to go even slower. So you want to think about you're traveling stuck at like 1 mile per hour or 1 kilometer per hour. And we're looking to create a little bit of cramp reflex. So you might experience a little bit of cramping, especially when you create muscle engagement in those end ranges. Just know that the cramping isn't anything bad. You're not like damaging yourself or hurting yourself. It's just that you're creating a little bit of neurological confusion. So your nervous system doesn't quite trust you with that range of motion. When you try to engage in that range, your body, your nervous system as a defense mechanism will try to prevent you from going there, and it results in like a little bit of cramping. So if you get the cramp, just sort of shake it out and then just come back to your rotational movements when it feels good to do so. And we do them slowly like that because we're using it as an assessment tool so that we can sort of identify maybe problem areas or areas where we might be a little bit restricted or deficient in our range or in our control of the range. And then we'll get into a little bit of Pales Rails. Now, any feedback that you guys have for this would be great because it's kind of like the first time that I'm really guiding Pales Rails being like timed. So in the video, in the class video, you'll have some prompts because I'm using like a interval app on my phone, so you'll hear the bells, so you can follow that, or you can use your own timer if you choose. That's okay as well. So our Pales Rails is essentially acronyms for progressive and regressive angle isometric loading. So essentially that's a fancy way of saying that we're applying isometric contractions to our poses, to our stretch. An isometric contraction is a contraction where the length of the muscle and the angle of the joint doesn't change. So how we do them is we'll hold the position for about 2 minutes, and then your Pales contraction is an isometric contraction through the opening angle of the joint or the lengthened side of the joint. And then your Rails contraction is your regressive angle. That's your closing angle of the joint or the side of your tissues that are in like a shortened sort of end range. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that's about it. So our isometrics are good just because it allows us to override or to bypass our stretch reflex threshold. So that limit in your stretch basically is your stretch reflex. And the pull of the stretch that you feel, that's your stretch reflex. So we can sort of bypass that, and we can activate more motor units in our tissues, and we can begin to build strength and progressive tissue adaptation in those longer and shorter end ranges of motion. So without further ado...
Are we saving the bloopers for after?
Oh yeah. So before we do this, so pertaining to the cramp, we have another little blooper reel for you. So we'll play that. Let me get the penguin meme out of there.
Pause.
Whoops. So you'll find...
Squeeze on the ball, try not to drop it, and we want to try to maintain hip abduction. So we want to maintain lifting the knee away from the ground. You want to feel the muscles.
Let me know if there's any echo.
Engaging here. Now maintaining that hip
But you'll find that Krista got pretty crampy when we were doing these things. She summoned Krampus, the old cramp monster.
Tracking behind the hip. Are you getting crampy? So you might feel a cramp sensation in the back of the thigh, but that's okay.
So much cramping right now.
That's good. You want cramp. It should be cramp city.
I was literally constantly massaging my legs.
It looks like Krista's just constantly rubbing her ass, but...
Or maybe I should just leave it like that, and then...
Or just leave it.
And then just go on the other side.
And I'm telling him to leave it because I did not want to do it again.
I know, I'm like, one more, with the ball, with the ball.
It's crazy.
Like this part to lift, I was like, I felt like my leg was going to fall off. I was like, oh my god.
Into the lead leg, into the right leg. She's pushing down into that left leg.
So this is an example of a Pale's
she's
contraction
feel
here.
More engagement through the inner thigh, yeah? And in through the front of the hip. Back there. It's not where. Okay, so you can cut that if you still wanted to.
And so when we do these, you want to kind of play around with it,
Here,
just to make sure that you're feeling
presses down.
engagement in the
Should
right
start to feel
spots.
more on the
So you want to find like your line of tension.
What the fuck is that? All right. Where that music is coming from. Okay. So back at it. So keep her chest square to that lead leg. She wants to create engagement through the inner inseam of the thigh and front side of the hip. And then for our rails contraction, she's going to release the shin, make a fist with the foot.
Make a fist with your foot, you guys.
Reaching back, your shoulder back towards
This little
that.
blooper actually had to stay in the final edits. Sometimes I like to pet my mat. I don't know. Sometimes I just like petting my mat. Friggin' OCD.
So Yogi's choice, you have some options. We'll go for a couple more like that.
Krampus is your friend. Yeah, exactly, Chris. You got it.
A little cramp in the booty. So we'll go for a couple more like that, and you have some, and you just slide your butt back and continue. What are you up to over there?
I was reaching for your butt and I was going like this.
Oh.
A little booty squeeze.
Blooper reel.
Yeah, okay. So, one more little thing that I wanted to mention about the cramp is that the more you practice engaging your tissues in those end ranges of motion, the less intense the cramp becomes and the more force you'll need to generate to trigger the cramp. That's the other thing too. And then once you start to experience that, that's a sign of your nervous system starting to adapt. It's starting to understand, the nervous system is starting to understand how to send neural drive into your muscles in those shorter or longer end ranges of motion. So if you got your props ready to go, your balls, and maybe some blocks or whatever props you were using for blocks, we'll get the class started. So again, let me know if there's any echoing or anything wrong with like the audio and that kind of stuff. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in the chat and we can sort of respond to you guys in real time with them. Have a wonderful practice and we will see you guys when we finish. This class is about like an hour, so we're doing better time-wise. Hey.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another practice. Chad here, along with the lovely Krista.
Hello, everybody.
This class is going to be a little bit different from some of the other streams that we've done. For those of you who come to my classes in studio quite regularly, this one will resemble a little bit more of what I would typically do in like a morning class. It's going to center or revolve a little bit more around functional mobility and just working on very specific joint function and maintenance. We're going to start on our backs. So just laying down, making yourself comfortable, and just like our regular class, we're going to take a moment to really focus our attention and our energy. We're looking to just center that awareness. We just want to, again, start to create or to establish that mind-body connection. You just want to become aware of the current condition of your internal environment. Coming onto your mat, you want to take a moment to just relax and to create a greater sense of awareness surrounding your breath. If you'd like to cultivate your breath, as we did in some previous classes, you can do that. You can start to consciously control your breathing, slowly lengthening it out, allowing the breath to deepen. We'll stay here for maybe a couple more full cycles. So again, as you inhale, you want to breathe into the belly first. Let the belly rise, let it expand. And then you want to start to pull that breath up through the ribs, into the chest, the upper chest. As you exhale, reversing that order. Let the chest fall, let the ribs deflate, let the tummy soften. You want to draw the belly inwardly on those exhales. Last breath here. You can start to gently wake your body up, start to bring a little bit of movement into the extremities. Yeah, just being gentle, rolling out the wrists, the ankles if that feels good. Now taking a bend into the knees. Just like we did in previous classes, start to create a little windshield wiper motion with the knees, just letting the knees sway side to side gently. As the knees sway side to side, move slow, be patient with your movements. Starting to integrate the shoulders a little bit. So taking the arms into like a T shape, but create cactus arms, take a bend into the elbows. Yeah. So now as your knees sway side to side, the next time that your knees lower down and to your right, take that left arm, start to reach it overhead, and then you're going to trace like a big half circle overhead as you roll on to the right side of your body. Yeah. And so if you can, maybe just lightly skimming the fingers, along the floor. It's like you're tracing a big rainbow sort of arc shape overhead. Yeah, I'm paying attention to the twist movement that you're creating within the upper spine. So you want to pay attention as the arm swings overhead, how the ribs start to track down, let the knees and the hips follow, and then do the same thing on the other side. Knees lower left, you're going to take that right arm overhead, start to trace that big half circle. You got it. And really explore your reach. Really play with length through the opening angle of the body. Yeah. Let the knees sway. Good. And we'll go side to side like that a few more times. And the next time that you roll onto your right side, we're going to hold here. And we're going to play with some side lying hip cars. Use the right arm as a little pillow for your head to rest on. Your left hand can act as a kickstand hand. You can press it down in front of you. Or if you wanted, you can also use a block as a little headrest. And then you can clasp the hands together out in front of you. And again, just to create tension, you can clasp the hands together. You can irradiate tension through the upper body. So if you wanted to use your ball to create tension, you're going to take your ball behind your knee and you're going to squeeze on it. So you want to take that ball right behind the knee crease. And the idea here is to create squeeze on that ball, so you start to create engagement through the backside of the thigh, through the hamstring. Tracing our circle, we're going to go 2 in each direction, but we're going to take it real slow, and we're going to be very, very specific. So we're going to start by drawing the knee in towards the chest, and creating hip flexion here. So you want to go as far as you can go with this. You want to start to feel squeeze, a little bit of engagement through the front side of that hip. So now maintaining that hip flexion, very slowly, you're going to begin to open that hip up. So tracking the knee, the shin, the toes towards the ceiling, but every once in a while, pause and see if you can create a little bit more hip flexion. Think about taking your knee towards your shoulder and then open the hip up a little more. Again, create a little bit more flexion. Keep going. Yeah, as you open the hip up, you just want to make sure that your shoulder, your ribs don't start to follow along with the hip. So we want to try to avoid or prevent that joint coupling. So as you open that hip up, pause here. You want to go right to your end range of motion or whatever is your safest end range. Find your inhale, clasp the hands, contract through the abdominals, squeeze on the ball, and then we begin to internally rotate the hip, swinging the heel of the foot back. The shin's gonna follow. Yeah, keep going. Once you come to that internal rotation, pause. Try to maintain squeeze on the ball. Try not to drop it. And we want to try to maintain hip abduction. So we want to maintain lifting the knee away from the ground. You want to feel the muscles on the outside of the hip and thigh engaging here. Now maintaining that hip abduction, you're going to start to extend the hip. So Krista's going to push back through the heel of the foot, and she's going to feel the knee and thigh tracking behind the hip. So we ask the hip for a little bit more extension. Maintaining that, we start to adduct. So you're going to draw the knee down, but just like you did earlier, pause every once in a while. See if you can create a little bit more extension. We bring it down a little bit more. You can see if you can create a little bit more extension. We draw the knee down towards the floor a little bit more. So now as you start to squeeze in towards your center line, you're going to feel more engagement on the inner thigh, the inside of the thigh. And going as far as you can go with that. Maintain squeeze on the ball. We go breath in, and we're going to start to pull the knee in towards the chest. So that's one. We're going to go for one more like that, and then we'll reverse our direction for another 2. So again, just taking it slowly. We start to open that hip up. As you abduct and externally rotate the hip. Pause, take a moment to breathe. When you're ready to move from this external rotation to internal rotation, go breath in, contract through the abdominals, maybe clasp the hands, squeeze on the ball, and then create movement. So we want to brace and we want to engage, then we move. As you find that internal rotation, try to hold there, pause. If you need to, the ankle can relax a little bit, but just try to maintain a little bit of squeeze on that ball. We find our inhale, and we start to extend the hip, we start to push back. So again, engagement is through the outside of the hip, thigh. See if you can go for a little bit more hip extension. As you find more hip extension, see if you can lift away from the ground a little bit more. Yeah. When you're ready, we go breath in, start to squeeze in towards your center line. Go slow, and again, at various intervals, keep trying to create a little bit more hip extension. That's it. As you squeeze towards that center line, we bring the knee back in towards the chest. And we'll go for 2 more, but change directions. Once you complete that last rotation, if you're using a ball or a prop to squeeze on, you can remove it from behind the knee. If you're using a block to support your head, you can remove it. Rolling onto your back, and then just letting the knees sway side to side. Let the hips swivel. You got it. Again, playing with that reach. The next time that you roll onto your left side, go 2 in each direction. So when you're ready, we start to find our hip flexion. You want to bring your knee towards your chest. As you do, try to squeeze in towards the center of your chest. Yeah, so keep going. You want to start to feel that squeeze through the front of the hip crease. Once you feel good engagement there, or like that's as far as you can go, then we start to abduct and externally rotate. And again, as you open up, every little bit, pause your movement, see if you can create a little bit more flexion. Think about trying to bring your knee towards your shoulder. Again, you want to open that hip as far as you can go, but without letting the ribs and the shoulder follow along with it. So just doing your best to isolate that hip. When you're ready to go from this external rotation to your internal rotation, find your inhale, brace through the abdominals, clasp those hands, squeeze on that ball, then we start to move. Once you internally rotate here, holding, just pause. Pause, try to maintain squeeze on the ball, try to maintain lift from the knee, the inner thigh, lifting away from the floor. We go breath in, and again we start to create our hip extension. Yeah. So keep reaching back, keep reaching back. Again, you want to try and produce engagement through the back of the thigh. You want to feel that crampy sensation a little bit. You want to produce it a little bit. If it becomes too intense, feel free to let it go, shake the leg out, and then you can come back. Yeah, and you want to keep maintaining or keep asking the hip for a little bit more extension as you start to draw the knee down towards the floor. From here, again, just completing the cipher, bringing that knee back in towards the chest. You can go for another one. The cramp sensation, it's not comfortable. It's not pleasant, that's for sure. It doesn't feel great. But you'll find that the more you practice creating engagement, producing movement within those outermost limits of your range of motion, you're going to find that the cramping will become less and less intense, and you'll find that you need to generate a lot more force in order to create the cramp. And that's a sign of the nervous system starting to adapt a little bit and starting to become a little bit more acquainted with those end ranges of motion. We'll go 2 more, reversing your movement path. In other words, go backwards. So start with the hip extension. As you find that engagement through the hamstring, then we start to lift off. Yeah, and you want to feel that muscle engagement on the outside of the hip and thigh. When you're ready to go from your internal to external, we go breath in, we contract, we clasp, we squeeze on that ball, then we execute. So you don't want to rush your body. You want to take your time. You got it. Once you externally rotate and you're abducting, keep trying to open that hip up as you start to pull your knee towards that shoulder. Yeah, and then continually pulling the knee towards the shoulder as you close that hip up. So maintaining that hip flexion as best you can. You got it. And we'll go for 1 more like that. Push it back. Take your time. Breath in, contract, then move. Take it slow, slow down. That's it. So once you've completed that last rotation, again, you can remove your headrest, take the ball out from behind the knee, coming onto your back. Again, just letting the hips swivel side to side. Now as the knees sway side to side, next time that the knees will lower down into your right, taking your right arm overhead, we're just going to come up to seated in our deer pose. So you might remember this from our last class as well. Our deer pose, also our 90-90 position. So we call it that just because we're trying to create 90-degree angles within the legs, little L shapes. And we're going to continue to mobilize the hips here. Now, if it becomes uncomfortable for your trail hip to sit up this tall, to create this much length vertically through the spine, then you can take your right hand out to your side, you can walk it out, you can lean towards that right hand. Even if you have to come all the way down to the forearm, that's okay. And we're going to continue with those little windshield wipers. So as the knees lift and lower, again, you can sort of transfer from forearm to forearm. If you can manage with the hands, that's okay as well. So just like in our previous class, if your hips need more room to move, you want to lean back into your hands to open the angle on the hips. You're reducing your degree of hip flexion. If you wanted to challenge the hips more, you want to sit up a little bit taller, and you're going to increase that degree of hip flexion. As the knees lift and lower, we're going to start to square the chest towards the lead leg. So as the knees lower right, Krista's going to start to square her chest towards that right leg. You want to feel that left hip pulling forward. Switching sides, same thing. Take the left hand behind you, swivel the hips. Square your chest towards your left leg. You want to feel the right hip pulling forward here. Be a little bit more specific with how you're moving. Again, you want to try to roll across the toe mounds as opposed to the heels of the feet. So looking towards that trail leg, you want to see the heel lift and swing underneath the shin. As you find that bear seat, that middle position, maybe trying to create a little bit more separation between the knees, produce a little bit more stretch through the inner thighs. So holding here, we're going to try to hold this position. We're going to try to hold this stretch for 2 minutes. Now, just to save time in our class, in our video, we're not going to be holding this for a true 2 minutes. If you guys wanted to time yourselves at home, that's okay. But the idea here is to just hold the stretch and hold the position for a longer period of time, just so that our bodies, our nervous system starts to pay attention to what you're trying to communicate to it. So we want to target our trail hip in this instance. So even just sitting up here, you might feel a little bit of crampiness on the back side of the hip, but you're going to feel more stretch through the front side of the hip and through the inseam of that thigh, through the inner thigh. Again, you want to sit up as tall as is comfortable for you. And after that 2 minutes from here, we're going to start to incorporate our isometric contractions. When we're holding the stretch, we want to hold for approximately 2 minutes. We're just breathing. You're trying to manage your stretch. You're trying to control your stretch, but you want to stay with it. So even if sitting up really tall starts to become just a little bit too taxing for your body, again, you can ease off a little bit, but try to maintain that stretch. Try to maintain some semblance of it. We're holding here in our 90s. Now, if you can, to build this stretch up, you can continue to support yourself with your hands. With that inside hand, you can reach for the knee, or you can reach for the shin if that's accessible. Your right hand can continue to be used as a kickstand for you. Or if you're able to, if it's accessible, you can sort of create like a meat hook with that hand, and you want to take it to that hip. So we want to prevent the hip from trying to sort of draw back. You want to keep that hip rolling forward. So we want to maintain internal hip rotation here. So our 2 minutes is about done. So for your pails and rails, you want to do 15 seconds each. So for our pails contraction, she's pushing down into the ground. As she pushes down into the ground, she's trying to keep her chest square to that lead leg. She wants to create engagement through the inner inseam of the thigh and front side of the hip. And then for our rails contraction, she's going to release the shin, make a fist with the foot, and you want to think about reaching your shoulder back towards that heel. That's when you should start to feel that engagement through the back side of the hip. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. So just grabbing a hold, breathe here. You want to start to press down for 15 seconds, and we can time ourselves. And you can follow the prompts if you'd like. You can follow the bell. So we start to press down, and you want to ramp that up to whatever is your 80% of whatever your maximum safest voluntary contraction is. Bing, make your fist. We go breath in, try to reach back for the heel of that foot. You want to track that shoulder back. Yep, but keeping that hip pulling forward, that left hip pulling forward, holding. Grab a hold, new end range. So we want to release the contraction. You want to let the body relax, and you're just breathing here, just holding the stretch passively, but you want to stick with it. So this is not going to be very pleasant. It's not going to feel great. Your body is not going to like it, but that's okay. So in 10 seconds, we're going to go for round 2 of our pails contraction. So again, if you want to cup the hip, that's okay. If you're using that hand to support yourselves, that's okay as well. Start to contract through the abdominals. Let that spill out into the legs. Drive down into your mat. Keeping the chest upright, forward, as much length through the spine as you can. In 3, 2, 1. Let go of the shin. Make the fist. Find your inhale. Contract. Reach back through those knuckles. Again, you want to reach that shoulder back towards your heel, holding strong there, breathing minimally for 2, 1. Grab a hold of your shin. So again, maybe you're in a deeper end range. Hold there, breathe, try to relax the contraction, but really try to hang on to it. Don't let your body off the hook. We got 1 more. Keep breathing. This is just like rest time. Let your body become acquainted with this new position. When you're ready, start to find your pales contraction, contracting through the abdominals, pressing down into the ground, and you're trying to pull that hip forward, trying to maintain length through the spine. Breath in, make your fist, reach back, hold, 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 hold. You want to breathe minimally so that you can maintain strong contraction through the abdominals. You just want to stay braced for 1. Grab a hold, but hold the stretch. We're just holding here passively, and then we'll move out of the stretch very gently. So try not to let your body off the hook. Hold the position. You work for that end range. Now let your body sit in it for a little bit. And no, it's not pleasant, but just breathe. Try to use your breath to sort of influence how the nervous system is responding here. So when you're ready to come out of this, you can bring that left hand forward, plant both hands down. Now without letting that right leg move, very slowly, we're going to play with a little external, internal rotation for that hip. So keep your left hand forward. And you're just going to play with lifting that knee away from the floor, nice and slow. So you don't have to open the hip up as far as it can go right away, but go as far as is comfortable for you and then lower. We lift, and we lower. Yep. And every single time you lift, maybe you get a little bit more opening within the hip, a little bit more still, and then we'll lower. And so you're just seeing how far you can, externally rotate the hip, the left hip rather, without that right leg moving. So we don't want the right leg to start to lift away from the ground. If you notice that happening within your body, that's just your body letting you know where your threshold is, how far you're going. And then when you're ready, taking the left hand behind you, come back to those hip swivels. Just letting the knees sway gently side to side. If you wanted to isolate that left hip, find your bear seat, that middle position, and then just play with internally and externally rotating that left hip, independent of the right. Maybe last one here. And then we'll switch sides. So knees lower left. So again, creating your 90-degree angles, sitting up as tall as is comfortable for that right hip. And you want to feel that right hip pulling forward. You can support yourself with your kickstand hand, with your left hand. If it's accessible, the right hand can reach for the knee, the shin, however far down you can reach, where it's comfortable for you to hold that position, hold that stretch for 2 minutes. Again, if it's accessible, if you can sit up, you can take that left hand, make your little meat hook. You want to cup that right hip. You're trying to draw that right hip forward. You want to try to keep your chest square or relatively square to that lead leg. And we hold. So holding here for another 30 seconds, give or take. And again, we can follow the prompts for our pails and rails, excuse me. So you want to begin to contract through the abdominals. You want to begin to press down into both legs. You want to ramp that up here for 15 seconds. In 3, 2, 1. Let go of your shin, make a fist. We go breath in. We contract. We reach back. Shoulder towards the heel of the foot. Holding there, holding that contraction for another 2, 1. Grab a hold. Release the contraction. Let the body relax, but hold that new position. Stay within the stretch. Maintain the breathing. Again, slow, steady inhales. Even slower, even steadier exhales. 3, 2, 1. Again, contract through the abdominals, press down into the legs, pales contraction. Try to keep that right hip drawing forward, working up to your maximum safest effort. Breath in, release shin. Make that fist, reach back. Holding, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Grab a hold wherever you're reaching for now. Again, releasing the contraction, but hold the position. We'll go for one more. Last one. Start to press down, contract through those abdominals, holding solid here, pressing down into both legs. In 2, 1, breath in. Make your fist, reach back. And hold. Reaching shoulder to heel. Holding for 2, 1. Grab a hold, passive stretch, but hold. Last 30 seconds here. Calm the nervous system. Try to stay with the position. So when you're ready, you can let that go. Again, taking both hands to frame that front leg. Very slowly. Start to lift off. External rotation. Go as far as is comfortable for you, and then lower. Maybe we're able to open up a little bit further. Without that left leg moving, and we lower. Slowly working towards end range of motion as far as you can externally rotate that hip. And then as it feels comfortable for you, you can take that right hand behind you. You can come back to your swivels, your hip swivels. That 90-90 transfer, or our little deer pose transition. And maybe even noticing as you swivel the hips side to side, if you can start to produce this movement within the hips without your hands supporting you, without your hands helping. So maybe even just noticing if being able to sit in this position, if you're able to not utilize your hands for support. So from here, as we continue with the hip swivels, we're going to start to incorporate a little bit of a pigeon stretch. We're going to try to keep it flowing. So we're going to try to keep it a little bit more active, a little bit more kinetic in how we stretch. You can continue to use your hands for support. Again, if you wanted to challenge yourselves a little bit, we want to try to allow the hips to move on their own, and maybe we remove the support of the hands. Maybe You notice that after playing with that stretch in internal rotation, that we're able to sit up a little easier in our deer pose, in our 90-90. To begin to incorporate that pigeon stretch, as the knees lower and you square your chest towards that lead leg, just starting to hinge forward slightly. Now as you hinge forward, you want to make sure that you are pushing the chest forward and you're poking your bum out behind you. And it's almost like you want to bring your chest down to your mat, but beyond that front shin. So we shouldn't have to go very deep to start to feel stretch there. And then we rise, and we switch sides. So just demonstrating one side with the hands. If you wanted to challenge yourselves a little bit, you can keep the hands together as you hinge. And bring the arms out to your sides. If you wanted to create a little bit more of an intense stretch, as you start to hinge over that front leg, think about taking the opposite arm forward, same arm reaching back, and notice if that changes the stretch a little bit, just that forward reach. And then we pull it back in, hip swivel, same thing. So as I'm hinging over my right leg, my left arm is reaching forward, right arm reaching back. That might change the stretch a little bit. If you wanted that real big challenge, maybe both arms reach forward. We open, we swivel. We hinge. For a couple more like that, and you have some options so you can sort of play around with it. Just take it slow. I'll go for one more. Coming back to your middle position, your bear seat, grab a hold of the shins or ankles. If you can reach down to the heels of the feet, that's okay too. That's awesome. And we want to start to use those forearms just to press to the inner thighs gently. Now as you press to the inner thighs gently, at the same time you can squeeze in on those elbows, on those forearms. And you might notice that that starts to ramp up your stretch through the inner thighs. And so the harder you squeeze, the more you're going to ramp your stretch up. You want to try to sit up nice and tall here. Reaching the arms forward, clasp the hands. And we're going to come to our butterfly from this bear seat position, one leg at a time. So you want to start to contract through the abdominals. Leading with the left leg as you inhale. See if you can create lift through that left leg without leaning too far back through the chest. And you want to start to draw your knee towards your shoulder. Pull that heel in towards the pelvis and lower. Right side, same thing. We lift. We want to go knee towards shoulder. Bring that right foot in to meet the left. Exhale, butterfly. You can sit up nice and tall. If you want to grab a hold of the feet or the shins, that's okay. When you're ready, we're going to come back to our bear seat. So leading with the left side, contract through those abdominals. We go breath in. We try to lift. Knee towards the shoulder. Kick out through that heel. Create that L shape with the leg. Place your foot down to the pinky toe edge. Right side, same thing. We lift. Knee to shoulder. Kick out through that heel. Place the foot down. There, see. We'll go one more like that, back and forth, in and out. Go with your breath. If you need to modify, keep your hands behind you, and we lift. You need a shoulder, heel in, we lower. Need a shoulder, heel in, we lower. As you come back to your butterfly, holding here, start to close that left hip up. So you want to roll onto the sole of the foot, start to hug that knee and inner thigh towards your shoulder. Kick that leg forward, set it down. As you inhale, reach up through the fingertips. As you exhale, reach forward as you fold over that left leg. So you can let the palms fall where they may. So we don't have to reach to the ankle, we don't have to reach to the foot, we don't have to reach to the toes. And especially if we're kind of like shrugging those shoulders up towards the ears, trying to reach for that foot, you want to just let that upper body relax. Let the shoulders be soft, let the shoulders fall away from the ears, let the arms be loose. And you can let this stretch be a little bit more passive, so if you want to let the head and neck relax, if you want to let the upper back round a little bit, that's all right. But if you're looking to create a little bit of a deeper stretch, maybe a little bit more of an active stretch, then we want to start by activating the ankle. So you want to think about trying to flex that ankle to pull the toes towards your shin or towards your face. And then we want to start to create length through the spine. So instead of thinking about bringing your nose towards your knee, like you're trying to smell your shin, think about lifting the chest away from the thigh a little bit and trying to draw your chest towards your toes. Yeah, and you can use your hands to support you. But with every inhale, you want to feel yourselves lengthening out of the low back. You want to feel the chest lengthening forward, almost like your heart wants to hover above that knee. And as you exhale, notice if your body invites you to go into a little bit of a deeper stretch here. Last breath, when you're ready, inhale, we'll curl it up to seated. As you curl it up to seated, no hands to help. Start to pull the knee and thigh in towards the chest. Try to squeeze in as tight as you can. And then open up to that butterfly. Right side. Close the hip up. Feel a good squeeze through the inner thigh, maybe front of that hip. Kicking that right foot forward. Inhale, lengthen upwards through the spine. As you exhale, lengthen forward as you fold. Yeah. And then again, just letting the hands fall wherever they may. Breathe. Just keeping the breath calm, keeping the breath steady. And if we can keep the breath calm and steady, we're going to start to communicate that same sense of calm, that same sense of steadiness to the nervous system, and by extension throughout the rest of the body. So you can almost find a sense of comfort or a sense of ease within your discomfort, i.e. within the pull of your stretch, as you really start to trigger that stretch reflex of the body. Again, we can let the spine round, we can let the head and neck relax. If you choose, you can also play with trying to lengthen the chest forward. So again, instead of thinking about bringing your nose towards your knee, think about trying to reach your nose towards your toes. When you're ready, find your exhale. We'll curl it up to seated. Again, setting up a nice tall spine. Start to draw the knee and thigh towards the chest. You want to try to hug in as tight as you can get. And then we open to our butterfly. Left side, same thing, but we'll keep it flowing. So a little bit more kinetic. We close. We slide the foot forward. Inhale, we lengthen up. Exhale, we reach forward as we fold. You can linger here if you'd like, if you want to keep it moving. Inhale, curl the spine up. Knee draws in towards the chest. Open to that butterfly. Right side. Same thing. Go with the breath. As you close that left hip up, we're going to play with trying to sit up. Use your right hand as a kickstand hand to help you, to assist that right hip, or you can try to go with no hands. So using the hands to begin, you want to keep that right heel tucked in a little closer to the pelvis, left foot flat. Using that right hand, you're going to give yourself a little assist, and we're going to lift to a kneeling position. And then we're going to sit back down. So same thing, you can use your hand as a kickstand hand, controlling the load that you're putting into that hip as you sit. Now, if you're going no hands, it's all about how you're able to transfer your center of mass, your weight. So you want to reach forward, take the chest forward, and you want to push down into that right leg to lift the pelvis forward and up. Same thing as we lower. Reach the arms forward, contract through the abdominals as you lower. Try to control your movement up and down. And we're going to add on to this. The next time that you lift up, we're going to keep the legs in this formation. Trail leg is the trail hip is externally rotating. So you want to pull that shin to come more parallel to the top edge of your mat. Keeping your hands to your waist, step your left foot forward and then start to lunge towards that left foot. So we're coming into a bit of a modified warrior two. Now as you start to find that lunge, you want to feel that stretch through the inseam of the thigh. You might feel some engagement through the front side of that left hip as well. As you come into your depth, you can hold here, or if you need to scale it back, you can push back. Putting it all together. Inhale, we're going to shift back. Square your chest towards your front leg. Bring that left heel, left foot in closer towards you and see if you can sit. Inhale, we'll lift up, sit up. Exhale, find your lunge. Shift back, chest forward. Exhale, sit. Switching sides, come back to your butterfly. When you're ready. Again, you can use your left hand as a kickstand hand. Lift. And lower. If you're going no hands, again, you want to reach forward. You can make fists. You can clasp your hands. Contract through those abdominals, and you want to drive down into that left shin, into the outside of that left shin, to lift the pelvis up. Coming into our modified warrior two, as we lift. Again, just making sure left hip is externally rotating, that shin is parallel towards the top edge of your mat. And we start to lunge towards that front foot. If it feels okay, you can let that left foot roll to its inside arch. Breathing here. If you see your knee going past your toes, that's okay. We're actually doing some meaningful mobility work for the ankle at the same time. So if you need to, you push back, ease out of your stretch. Come back into it when you're ready. Again, feel free to linger where it feels good to linger. Move as it feels good to move. And putting it all together as you shift back. Square your chest towards the top of your mat. Bring that right foot in towards you and we sit. Yeah. Reach forward, we lift. Find your lunge. We'll go for a couple more like that. Take your time with it. You might find that getting up and down off the ground without using your hands to help can become tricky. Can almost become a skill in and of itself. As you come back to seated, come back to your butterfly. Switching sides, we're going to add on. Close the hip, kick forward, inhale, lengthen up, exhale, fold. Again, linger if it feels good to linger here. When you're ready, curl it up to seated. Draw the knee in. Modified warrior 2. We lift, we shift, we lunge. Changing up the lunge. As you shift back, internally rotate that right hip so your shin now sort of straightens out behind you. If you need to, you can place extra padding underneath that right knee. Top of the foot comes flat. You want to think about posteriorly tilting the pelvis, i.e. we're going to start to tuck the tailbone underneath us. Like you're trying to tuck your tail between your legs. And as you do this, you might find that that starts to create more pull, more stretch through the front of the thigh, through the front of that hip crease. Breathing here. From this position, we're going to start to integrate the shoulders a little bit more. So going for our shoulder cards, just like we did with the hips. Now, if you'd like, you can use your ball to squeeze on. You can make a fist, or you can even sort of create like a karate chop hand and just think about squeezing your fingers together. So yogi's choice, we start to take that right arm overhead. Here, we're going to start to play with some axial rotations. So you just want to rotate palm and elbow away from the body, creating internal rotation in the shoulder, rotating palm and elbow in towards the ear, creating external rotation in the shoulder. Or you can think about rotating from that upper arm bone. So it's like you want to take the upper arm bone to rotate away from your ear when you create your internal rotation, and to rotate in towards the ear as you create your external rotation. So we'll find internal rotation. Going for your shoulder car, start to trace a big circle with that right arm. Take it slow. So you want to cut that angle as hard as you can. So just like you did with the hip, you're looking to challenge the shoulder, and you want to continue to rotate that arm, thumb downward, as you reach for the back of your mat. You want to continue to spiral that arm inwardly, internally. So as you complete your rotation, so you notice the back of my hand is facing towards my thigh. So I maintain internal rotation throughout that movement. As you reverse your movement path, you start to reach back into your shoulder extension without letting the shoulder blade hike up. And then we start to externally rotate. We're rotating outwardly through that upper arm as you come back to that overhead range. And you want to think about really trying to take that bicep to the ear. We'll go for another one like that. As you come back to that overhead range, holding here. Again, try not to let it go. We'll go for some end range rotations. So keeping the bicep to the ear, trace tiny little circles with that arm. Changing directions for another 5, 4. Keep trying to reach back with every circle for another 3, 2, 1. Bringing that arm down. If you got a ball, you can set it down. Half splits. Walk the palms back, shift the hips back. You can use your blocks to support your hands if you choose. Extending through that front leg, rolling onto the heel as you exhale. Again, you can hinge at the hip or hinge at the waist. Folding over that left thigh. or rather maybe closing the angle between chest and thigh to deepen that stretch. When you're ready, walk the palms forward, shift the hips forward. So you can go back and forth like that with hands to your mat or hands to your blocks. If you wanted to challenge your mobility, so again, our mobility term is where your strength and your flexibility meet. Just like we did coming to sit up and sit back down from our sort of half butterfly position, you can do the same thing here. As you push back through that front foot, roll onto the heel. You want to press down into that heel a little bit, as it's going to help you to stabilize and to control the downward or eccentric portion of your movement. You can hinge at the hip to find deeper stretch. To come forward to your lunge, again, press into that heel, and it's like you're trying to pull your pelvis forward and down right into your lunge. Go for a couple more like that. Take your time. You want to think about really controlling your movement. Don't let the weight of your body or momentum dictate anything to you. You come back to your lunge. Externally rotate the hip. Pull that right shin in towards the center of your mat. Sit back. Butterfly. Switching sides. Nice and tall, closing that right hip up. You want to try to continually squeeze that knee and thigh in towards the ribs. Kick that right foot forward. Inhale, we reach up. Exhale, reach forward as you fold. Inhale, curl yourselves up to seated. Taking a bend into the right knee, foot flat. Left palm behind you. Inhale, we'll lift up. Exhale, we'll sit down. So again, you can continue to use your hand, your kickstand hand to support you, or without, reach forward, press into the left shin to lift. Exhale to sit. Adding your lunge. Inhale, we lift, we rise. Exhale, lunge towards that front foot. We want to maintain external rotation in that back hip. So shin parallel to the back edge of your mat. And sit. One more, and we add in our second lunge. So as we lift, we take our modified warrior 2. As you push out of that front foot, as you shift back, straighten that left shin out behind you. Again, if you need to give yourself a little extra padding, you can. Holding this lunge, you can play with depth of lunge here. But again, we want to think about tucking the tail under, or rather tilting the pelvis posteriorly, like you're tucking your tail between your legs. That's going to create more stretch through the front of the left thigh, so be mindful. Taking the left arm overhead, again, you can use your prop if you choose. As we take that left arm overhead, holding here, you want to find that end range of motion pertaining to that overhead flexion. And then we start to internally rotate the shoulder. So again, rotating palm, elbow, upper arm away from the body. Internally rotating the shoulder, palm, elbow, inner arm in towards the ear. Just going back and forth like that. As you come back to your internal rotation, start to trace that big arm circle. Take it slow. You want to keep your chest square to the top of your mat as best you can. And you want to continue to spiral that left arm, thumb downward, throughout your movements. We continue to internally rotate the shoulder. So as you complete the rotation, again, back of the hand is facing towards you. Reversing your movement path, we reach back and up. You want to target your shoulder extension. Start to rotate thumb up as you pull that left arm back overhead. Go for another. Try to treat it the same way that you did the hip. As you start to reach back, try to hug in towards the body. externally rotating the shoulder. Again, you want to think about really trying to pull that bicep to the ear. Keep that arm overhead. End range rotation. So again, holding in that overhead range, we start to trace those tiny little circles. Slow, smooth, concentric little circles. Arm's going to start to feel real heavy. You're going to start to feel that fire build, but stick with it. Keep breathing. Changing directions. Another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keeping your blocks handy, go for your half splits, little counter pose for the front leg. Walk the palms back, shift the hips back, rolling onto the heel. Again, you can hinge at the hip, you can hinge at the waist. You want to try to maintain length through the spine as you do. Walking the palms forward, shifting the hips forward, finding your lunge. So we'll go for a few more like that, and you can continue with your hands to your mat, continue with your props if you're using them. Again, if you're challenging your mobility, the chest lifts. We push back through the front foot, roll onto the heel, press down into the heel as you lower. And then same thing, that pressing into that front heel is like your anchor to pull the pelvis forward and down into your lunge. Coming back to your lunge, this time plant your hands. Right knee will come back to meet the left. If you want, back toes can tuck under, the left knee can lift, step your right foot back to meet the left. Now we'll take the knees down. I'm just finding a child's pose here, sitting the hips back and down towards the heels. Now as you do, you can play with shifting side to side in that child's pose. See how that feels for the hips. From this child's pose, we're going to come onto the belly. And so however you'd like to get there, you can slide forward to come onto the belly. You can find your modified plank and you can lower, yogi's choice. So just coming forward onto the belly, pressing down into the tops of the feet. With your inhale, start to lift your chest up and away from your mat. And we'll bring the forearms in front of us for our Sphinx pose. And so you can stay here with your Sphinx, or if you wanted to go for your Cobra pose.
Press firmly down into the palms. Think of pressing the pelvis, the tops of the feet down into your mat. And then slowly start to lift the elbows up. And try not to have a lot of the tension in the low back. You want to think of engaging the muscles where the bra strap would lay. And again, think of pressing the pelvis in as you lift. You don't want to extend the arms completely here. And then as you slowly roll back down, move nice and slow as you lower the elbows down.
So we want to produce that stretch through the front side of the body. Tracking through those abdominals, maybe just underneath the low ribs is where we want to feel that stretch. So as you lift up and you press down into those palms, it should almost feel like you're trying to drag your belly button towards your thumbs to find that lift, and then that maybe will create more of a stretch through the front side of the body there. When you're ready to lower, exhale, we'll lower one more time. You can let the elbows splay out. Palms under shoulders, pushing back to your child's pose. Gentle counter pose for the spine. Breathing here. Now you can keep the arms overhead, or option 2, take the arms to your sides. Relax alongside the body, just letting your forehead rest to your mat. So from this child's pose, very slowly we'll begin to curl up to a seated position or kneeling position. Once you get there, shift your weight towards your hips so you can sweep your feet forward towards the top of your mat. If you want to scoot your bum forward, that's okay. and curling onto your backs. We'll finish on our backs. So as we curl the spine down, if there's any last intuitive movements or adjustments that you'd like to make to close out your practice, you can give yourselves a little hug. You can rock side to side if that feels good for the low back. If you'd like to trace circles with the knees, if that feels good, you can play with that as well. And always an option to finish with your happy baby if you choose. So for that happy baby, arms are to the inside of the knees and thighs, reaching for the feet, outside arch, inside arch, or scooping up the big toes. From here, again, we can play with extending one leg at a time, or both together. If it feels good to take that supine middle splits. When you're ready, release the feet to your mat. You can extend your legs nice and long on your mat. If you want to bring the feet together and allow the knees, the thighs to open up like a book, option for that reclined butterfly pose. So just bringing awareness back to your breathing. Slow it down, lengthen it out. And through the breath, we begin to communicate that sense of calm, that sense of relaxation. When you feel the body beginning to relax fully and deeply here, you just want to find it within yourselves to relinquish the control that you have over your breath. Allow your breath to come back to that natural, effortless state of being. Just taking a moment to enjoy the stillness, and to cultivate that internal sense of ease of being. Sealing off our practice together right here, I'd like to thank you once again for coming onto your mats. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing your time. And thank you for your presence, for your patience. As always, high fives and good vibes, everyone. Right on.
How was everyone's mobility class?
So how did it go? Went well. It's clear instruction. How'd you guys do with like the isometrics, the pails, rails, and that kind of stuff? How are your hips moving? We had another little video clip that we wanted to share pertaining to why cars, what's happening with our cars when we're doing them. Toasty. Nice. Did doing the pails, rails, and stuff, did it help with like your ability to move a little bit more freely? But yeah, we'll cue that up quick. So this is from Dr. Andrea Spina. So he's the guy who created like this FRC or functional range conditioning or functional range anatomy systems.
This is money.
Nice. I'll cue that up just so you guys can have a better sort of understanding of why we do what we do, the method behind it. So straight off here, I just want to avoid any copyright strikes. We're using this little video clip for fair use for educational purposes. And I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Andrea Spina and his whole FRS crew and all the awesome mobility coaches. On Instagram, you guys should follow his page, Dr. Andrea Spina, and functional_range_conditioning on Instagram for some great little tips and tricks on how you can improve your mobility for specific joints. So if you know that you have issues with certain things, it's a really, really great resource to check in on every once in a while. So, yeah. We'll get it going. And I'll pause every once in a while if there's things that maybe need some clarification. There we go.
What better way to speak to the capsule than what you just did? When you woke up
So just to clarify, when he refers to capsule, he's referring to your joint, to the workspace that your joint possesses. So your joint is the space between two bones, and your capsule is the deepest part of your tissue that surrounds those two bones.
the morning, you went through and you moved your capsules. You increased the amount of type 2 afferent information going to the cortex.
When he refers to afferent information, he's talking about information that's going to your central nervous system from the capsule of the joint.
Feel good to do the cars? So there was a good feeling associated with the cars. So if the joint is feeling good, you're really resetting the tone every morning, every time you're doing your cars. So you're making it so for that day, your system is able to relax. If you identify problems, well, that's going to tell you, man, I better upregulate the amount of type 1 cars that I'm doing for that day in my right shoulder because it's feeling a little bit achy. The more you do, the more you pump up inflammatory fluid, the more the joint feels good. The more the joint feels good, now you're decreasing the tone in the areas where you're having problems. This is conscious uploading of information on a regular basis. Does that make sense? That's why cars are to be done not just once a day, twice a day. You monitor your body, you scan your body, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. If something has a closing angle pinch, what can I do about it? We'll talk about that today. If something is hurting, what better way to make it feel better than to move it through a pain-free range of motion? If you just let something hurt and you don't move it, your tone is going to get set tighter because it doesn't want you to move, then you're not going to move it as much. And if you don't move it as much, you don't activate your anti-inflammatory pumps, which means that the next time that signal goes through, it's going to tighten up even more and it's going to stay tight. This is purposeful uploading of information into your central nervous system. Make sense?
Yeah, so if there's any questions about that, feel free to drop them in the comments or in the chat as we go.
So what does it mean
shit.
for a joint to be internally triggered? I mean that the articulation does not...
Sorry. Yeah, so when we're doing our cars, we use it as a tool for assessment. It's great maintenance work for your joints. It's a great way to sort of prime your joints and your system for your day. We all understand that we need to warm up, quote unquote, for our workouts, or when we do a practice, we begin with sort of a warm-up type sequence. But for some reason, we think we don't need to do that for the rest of our day. But the more you move your joints, the better they're going to feel, is essentially the message here. And the better connected you will be to your body. So you'll be able to identify problem areas
And you can
more
also
efficiently.
see how these this kind of method really helps with, it's a nice complement to your yoga practice as well.
Yes.
Just in terms of finding greater range throughout different poses. Maybe some poses will be a little bit more accessible to you.
Yeah. And you'll have better control over those ranges when you quote unquote flow or through movement. So they often, Dr. Spina will often say that passive inputs yield passive results. So when we are passively stretching, like in a yin practice or something like that, and we're just sort of holding our stretches passively, it's really good at acquiring passive range of motion. But then we need to teach our nervous system how to be able to create muscle engagement, or to create neural drive, so to speak, in those ranges. And then once we can teach the nervous system how to engage and how to activate within those ranges, now your nervous system is going to start to trust you with them more, i.e. we're talking about the cramp, less cramp. And the more your nervous system and your body trusts you with controlling those ranges, now it's going to allow you access to them dynamically through movement. And whether it's in your yoga class, your flow practice, or whether it's in your workouts or sports that you play, or whatever daily activities you do. So yeah, just a different methods or different approaches that we can apply to our yoga practice. Mm-hmm. But so other thanks that we'd like to give out. Thank you to all of you who help support the channel and who make donations. It's greatly appreciated. And actually, we're quite excited because from the donations that we've received, we were able to upgrade our camera situation. So
I'm literally going to pick it up after this video. So
yeah,
super exciting.
So no more, leaning a cell phone up against a water bottle or something to film ourselves. And yeah, with this upgraded sort of equipment, now we'll be able to put together better quality videos for you guys and better quality streams, and just the content that we can provide will be better. So thank you for that. If you'd like to support the channel, Krista's going to drop the link in the chat. We set up a PayPal account. If you know us personally, e-transfers is fine as well. You can reach out to us that way. And yeah, as always, especially during these times, not many people are working, so nothing is obligated. We just appreciate you guys coming out and joining us in the live chats and practicing with us. That's huge. And sharing it, like, subscribe, share with your friends who you think might be interested in this, or if you have friends who are into sports and that kind of stuff. This might be a nice complement to their training and to their sport.
Our next class that we are going to film will be a beginner yoga class, beginner gentle class. So if you want more of a gentle practice, tune in for that. And I'll probably aim to have it up maybe early next week.
Gentle is a relative term as well, so we know that even within a quote-unquote gentle practice, you can still make it challenging for yourself if you choose. Mm-hmm. But we'll have the option, and just to sort of diversify the types of classes that we're providing. Yeah. I thought I had something else.
I think that was it.
One other thing. Could have sworn there was something else. Oh well, I forget. Oh, okay. Anyways, so hope you enjoyed the class. I hope your joints, your hips feel great. You might have a little bit of soreness, but that's okay. It's not anything bad. Just like when you work out or whatever, if you have a little bit of muscle soreness the next day, that's a good thing. You've stressed your body just enough that it's going to sort of respond to that stimulus. So I guess we'll cut it off there. Hope you have a wonderful Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again for coming. And we'll talk soon, everyone. As
And-
always. Oh, you had something?
Oh, I was gonna say, and any videos you guys want to see, let us know. We're thinking about doing some pranayama breath videos, videos about breath and breathing and types of breathing and all that kind of stuff. So.
Oh, Nat made it. Hey, Nat.
Oh, hey, Nat. So yeah, keep a lookout for that, and yeah, have a good Friday, everybody.
Wonderful weekend. Peace and blessings. And as always, high fives and good vibes, everybody. Peace out.